Well, it looks like I'm being recorded, so looks like audio's all right. And no one's here, but that's okay. I'm just going to start working. So let's see. What am I doing today? I guess we start out with... oh, howdy, howdy. You're the only one here right now. Your left ear loves this stream? Oh, is it... is my mic not, is this not working properly? How about this? Is that better? Is this working now? Yeah, I saw that John and Ace Roy were here. Now it's better? Okay. I don't know why that didn't save. It should have been like that automatically. Oh, what's up, John? Just lurking here. Well, I gotta remember what I was doing since I haven't done that much since last time. So I will start by playing the game. So, playing the monkey game. Yeah, I probably will get around to that at some point. You know, whenever anything gets a lot of public attention and enthusiasm, it just immediately makes me suspicious. So I didn't get it when it came out, but... okay, so... first of all, movement is working fine. Hello, Frog Boy. Welcome. Okay, movement is working good, so let's test our pushing and pulling. That seems to be working fine. And let's test pulling. I gotta fix these animations. These are basically pretty much copied from Link's Awakening, because they're such nice animations in the original. But I will... most of the art I'm probably gonna redo much later in development. But for now, this is alright. Oh, the stream's still on the start. Oh, I'm such an idiot. Bruh. Okay. You know, I will learn how to stream properly one of these days. Maybe. Okay, anyway, I'm just making sure all my mechanics are working. Pulling, pushing, can pull from all sides. I'm actually going to change the input mode, but that can be later. And then picking up and throwing, that seems to work. I do need to remind myself how that is being done. So carry throw. Yeah, because this is being handled here, which is not great, because I think the problem is that it can slide on top of other objects. Well, it kind of collides. So it shouldn't be able to throw there. Okay, good. But if I throw it kind of right up against it... well, it seems to be working, actually. Okay. I'm sure there will be problems there once I make this more complicated. I know I might be 2 months late, but I want to know why you enjoyed pre-nerf Consort. I actually did too, and I think the nerf helped a ton, and the boss is now good for the masses, I feel. Difficulty is low. One problem I had with the boss is that it prioritized hugging his right leg the whole fight to maybe get a chance to dodge terrible slash. I mean, I just liked Radon because I like the idea that if you're fighting a literal god, that it's ridiculous and it's unfair. I like that. I don't really want it to be a great action fight. I want it to be. I mean, I don't know. You could do it lots of different ways and be effective, but I enjoyed the feeling that it was unfair because he was literally a god. So it's the strongest demigod reborn with a literal god. Yeah, the FPS drop was really the only unfortunate part. But it being ridiculous and over the top, and to me that's what I'm always a fan of, like, the gimmick fights, like Demon Souls, and when there's an idea behind the fight and it's not just about action, I prefer that. So if you're doing an action boss and then it's like ridiculously unfair, but that makes sense narratively, I don't know. I'm a fan of that. So okay, so what happens when you hit these guys? I just need to check that out. So that's a little weird. They kind of go over the stones. Part of this is I had this whole layer system set up, and I don't think I actually need that. I'm not sure. There is something about the way the slimes are moving, though, that it kind of catches things. Move and slide. I wonder if move and collide. Oh, okay. I'm not going to get caught on that, but I'll make a note of it. Slimes catching objects, moving them. Also, what's the other note? Collision detection when throwing items. And that's the main stuff. Okay. The funniest thing to me about that fight was that I immediately unequipped my shield after seeing his attacks and going, well, the swords are bigger than my character, no point trying to shield. Yeah, I mean, I'm always a proponent of turtling in FromSoft games. I think the hate for shields is unwarranted. I think they're great. Will you start working on the fighting system? Well, it depends on how much I get through. Mostly, I'm not working on a specific system right now. I'm working on my data structure. So that's the next thing. So what I have right now is I have two abilities for the character right now. I have a fireball. Oh, why is it not animating? Should be animating. Animation default. Animation not found default. Oh, because we should delete this and put in travel. That's what we want. Oops. And yeah, okay. That's a little weird looking, but theoretically that should work. So let's check that out again. Yeah, okay. It's a little too wobbly, but these are just temporary anyway, so okay. And then if that hits something, oh, why does that not hit something? What the heck? That hits the movable stone, but not the rock. That's because we need it to mask for all of those things. So there we go. Okay. All right. So we've got our fireball. and the ice thing. Which is even more simple than the fireball, but it's just to get things going. So you see this turns the slime into an ice cube. There we go. Got a bunch of ice cubes. And then the fireball burns the trees, and it burns the slimes and turns them into a little glass dude. And the nice thing is the glass guy you can pick up and throw. So it becomes a little object. And the ice cubes you can push like that. Now the pushing I'm going to need to mess around with some more, because ideally the whole purpose with the ice cube is that you push it and then it kind of goes off sliding for a while instead of just moving tile based like the normal pushing thing. So I'm going to have to create a whole system for that. Do they melt over time? No, this is very basic, but you can shoot them with a fireball. Now it's a little bit messed up. The fireball should just return them to the normal state, but I think it's, yeah, see, it's kind of inconsistent. That's what should happen, is it just returns them to the normal state, but I messed up the logic for the state change, so sometimes it kind of continues to burn them afterwards and turns them back to glass. That's a collision. Also how sometimes, oh, that's right. That's why it's doing that. That actually makes sense. I thought that was a glitch, but that's intentional. The idea with the abilities, is that you hold down left trigger or right trigger, and then you can have abilities mapped to the 4 face buttons for each of those. So you have 8 abilities sort of quick selected at any time. But while you're holding down the triggers, you strafe. So I don't have the animations for strafing right now, but theoretically, instead of turning like this, he should just be facing the same direction, so that no matter how far he's moving, he's still shooting in one direction. That gives you a little bit more freedom of movement to kind of aim. So I'm going to make a note of that, because I thought that was a mistake, but it's not. Animations for strafing. Aim is working properly. Just to remind myself. So, did I compose my own ambience? No, this is Skyrim. I understand fully why people hated him, but I just liked how intense he was. I don't think he joins the masses of Gale, Ludwig, or Artorias, but Mesmer 100% does. He beyond surpassed the hype. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think... I mean, Gale is like just a really well done boss in every respect. It's got the action elements, and it's got the spectacle, and the pacing of the spectacle, I think, is really what makes it, because it really ramps up at the end instead of starting out crazy and getting crazier. It starts out kind of just kind of depressing and fighting a dude with a sword, and then it just gets ridiculously crazy by the end. But it's also, I mean, Gale works so well because the animations are actually done well. He's got good timing, good telegraphing for everything, unlike almost every other boss in Dark Souls 3. Maybe the Demon Princes are also well done in that, although they have some weird moves. To be honest, the only thing in Shadow of the Erdtree that was as charming and enjoyable and just fun to think back on for me as most of Wukong were Mesmer and Bale. Not just plugging Wukong like a new girlfriend. Yeah, I really enjoyed Shadow of the Erdtree. Eventually I'll probably go back and do a full playthrough of the base game and the DLC, and I don't know if I want to go through the whole process of doing like a lore through, but I might do something on stream. I do want to... Actually, I was thinking I kind of wanted to go back through my old videos and kind of score myself on how well I did, whether I predicted things correctly or incorrectly, whether I was way off base, if there are things that are still unanswered, that kind of thing. Okay, so the idea now is I have these components, which is where everything's being handled, but that's not really the ideal way to do it. I need to have systems, and the components are just storing data, really simple data. So they're just an easy way to flag things. So I think I'll start with the fire system. So this will be a script, and we'll call it fire system. I don't think I need to call it anything else. That should be flammable system. A fire system should be good because it'll handle everything. So, and we want to make that a singleton. So, systems add. Okay. So fire system is going to be working. So then let's open that up. And now the idea is, what do we want to happen in here? So there's going to be multiple ways for things to catch fire. One would be collisions, and another would be proximity. So if a fireball hits something, it should make that thing catch fire if it's flammable. And then if something is burning and there's other flammable things around it, let me write this down because this, I need to think about this. Okay, so we have two methods for burning. One is collision. Example would be fireball hits tree. Okay. Method 2 would be proximity, which I haven't done anything yet with. And the example there would be burning tree causes other nearby trees to burn, which is basically fire spreading. Proximity. Now the proximity is a bit more complicated. Let's just go through the collision first. So with collision, we should have a method in the fire system a method in the fire system. Where do we want to put everything is the thing. So the fireball collides with something. Now, it might collide with lots of different things. It only matters if it collides with something that has a flammable component. So the question is, where do we want to check for that? Do we check for that in the fireball itself? So let's walk through the steps. Okay, fireball collides. if collision is flammable, then we want to call the method in the fire system, because there's no need to do anything in the fire system unless fire is actually involved. So if it's hitting something normal, it's basically the same as if it's not actually doing anything fire-wise. If there's fire types of damage, it will have a damage system for that, so that also doesn't matter. So it only matters if it's going to trigger something to burn. Okay, so we call a method in the fire system. The method would be, we need it to do a couple things. It will add flammable object to a list, which is then looped over. So the fire system isn't running any code until something gets added to the list, and then it will loop over that every tick. And it needs to do what? It needs to change Boolean in flammable component is burning. And I guess there's a question of how long does it burn for? So, is that something... Different things, theoretically, should burn for different lengths of time. A tree might burn for a longer amount of time than an enemy, for example. Seems like the fire system shouldn't handle that, because that's going to be particular to the entity. So the entity stores, well, it doesn't even need a length of time, actually. It can just be triggered by whatever state change. So for example, with the slime, it gets turned into glass. Entity is going to send some signal to, well, that's the thing. Okay, if we add the entity to a list, what is the fire system actually doing in this scenario? Proximity can actually be pretty easily handled by the tree on collision in the fireball. Then mark a flag on the tree, then call the tree with a continuous method inside the tree that handles the burning. Well, my thought is, because there's going to be eventually there's going to be lots of interactions between these systems. That's why I'm kind of abstracting out into systems and trying to take as much sort of global logic out into the system instead of putting it inside the entities. And then there's less repetition as well. The question is, so what happens when the entity stops burning? When it stops burning is going to be determined by the entity. So the entity is checking Boolean in its component for entity specific behavior. And then what happens when it stops? When burning stops, for example, slime, let's say burning slime becomes glass, what happens? Then we need to tell the fire system to stop. Stop including it in its process. So the entity needs to tells fire system to remove itself. Not too clear on this part, actually. Let's go on to proximity and see how that's going to work. So the idea there is, let's say tree is burning. So at this point, the tree is burning. It is being handled in the fire system. Now, how do we actually check proximity? What's this? What's the most optimized way to do that? We don't necessarily want to use collision because, you know, maybe fire can jump a little bit. There could be problems with collision, so we do want to use just proximity. Even with abstracting, you can have the tree object handle its own fire logic with interfaces. Well, ideally, anything that is specific to the tree is going to be handled within the tree. But anything that is more global, that would apply to a tree and to something else, and anything else that's burning, that's going to be handled within the fire system. So, okay, so what we need is the flammable component needs to store some, no, not the flammable component. It would be within the entity itself. Yeah, the entity itself needs to have data. Entity has data. Interfaces are like systems that can be placed on objects as attributes to base classes. Well, to be honest, I'm not sure exactly what I need. I'm doing this like ECS framework because my thought is there's going to be lots of systems, lots of different types of components, and they're all going to be interacting with each other in many cases. And so my thought is to build everything like very modular. I could build this in a more, probably in a simpler kind of inheritance-based way. It's kind of hard for me to envision what the end result is going to look like, so I'm not really sure what I want out of it, but I'm trying to lean on the modular side of things because I think that may make it easier just for prototyping and messing around with stuff. So entity has data on how flammable, I guess is the way to put it. So let's say I guess there's a question: should everything that is flammable spread fire in the same way? If it does, it's more consistent. Player can understand the cause and effect a little easier. If it doesn't, that's probably more realistic. Because let's say a tree burning, does that spread fire as much as I don't know, if we have, let's say, tall grass. If tall grass burns, should that spread more? Should it spread quicker? Or should it always work the same way? Maybe that's a question I shouldn't try to answer yet. So what we want then, I think, is the system using an interface means the object's data can be accessed from the interface on the object. Acquiring a reference to the object that presumably has the features, accessing the data or logic from the object. The most basic way of referencing them is to get a reference to an existing object from another acquired instance. Node.object very object equals a get object. Okay. Yeah. I think GDScript is actually, what do you call it, gradually typed, but yeah. Wait, if you need an export constant variable which doesn't exist, use a conditional setter for a tool script that checks if it's executing in the editor. I honestly don't understand what that means. Why would I need an export constant variable which doesn't exist? Oh, this is just something you can't use? Oh, well, right, because that doesn't make any sense. How could you export a constant? What would be the point of that? Okay, I'm not really sure. Load resource. Okay, preload. There's a path to the thing. Load path. Preload. Okay. Export variable script type of type script. Export variable constant script. Not really following this? Oh, duct typed. The object has a script attached. It will attempt to set the property through the script. This leaves open the opportunity for scripts to override a property defined on the base object by overriding the setter method for the property. I'm gonna go with my system for now until I run into a problem, which is probably very soon. I'll have to read up on interfaces. I missed your comment. Do you see these wild theories that the GEQ is Marika and Melina and Mesmer are her children, but technically Marika is still their mother because Marika, GEQ, and Radagon are all one? They actually have weight, by the way. I mean, that's my theory. The GEQ is Marika. I'm not the only one with it, I assume, but okay, I'm just going to put this as a question. Does everything spread fire equally? In other words, do some objects burn but not spread, whereas other objects spread a lot? That's a question which I don't think I need to answer yet. What does need to happen is a proximity check. Now, I think what we don't want fire to just spread forever. So there needs to be a limit, which means that we need to know where the fire started from. Now that gets complicated because what if multiple things start burning? There needs to be a reference to the first thing that starts burning in each case so that there's a hard limit to how far the fire can spread. So what we need is let's say fire can spread to three objects away in proximity. A simple way to do this is anytime something is triggered to start burning, we give it an index, let's say index of 0. And then whenever anything is triggered to start burning by proximity, we would add to that index. And once it's above and then we just do a check, see if that index is too high. I think something like that would work. So first of all, the fire system applies some variable to every every flammable object it's processing. Tracker. the tracker starts at index 0 by default. And then if flammable object is added to processing via proximity, index increases. If index is too high, flammable object is not activated. Something like that. Okay, so in the fireball, so we're moving, and then we get the collision. Shapecast 2D may be relevant for pruning faraway objects. Well, I don't want fire to spread ridiculously, so I think it will always be within a manageable scope. I have no idea how optimized things need to be, because there's going to be a lot of different dynamic systems working by the end. So that's sort of a problem I'm leaving for later. My focus is on getting it to work first and then optimizing later. So yes, I'm not sure if what you mean is like stopping things from burning if they're off screen or something like that. That may be necessary, but I'm not sure about that yet. I mean, I don't even know how I'm going to be handling like chunking the map. I have no idea about that yet. So that's a big problem, which is in the back of my mind, and I don't want to think about. Okay, so collider, blah, 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 get collider. So now we do the check if it has a flammable component. And if it is, then what we want to do is, instead of using this ignite component, we want to call a method in the fire system. So in the fire system, we want to have a method ignite object by collision, and we will take in what? An object, right? Actually, what do we want to reference to? Do we want to reference to the component or the object itself? Is there anything that the fire system needs to do that won't be mediated by the component? The entity will... I should probably use entity rather than object, just for clarity and consistency. Entity by collision. I'm just always worried about misspelling entity for some reason. What do I want to pass in there is the question. So what's the best way to do this? Would be to create a dictionary? I assume, can I loop through a dictionary and process both the values and the keys? So let's say the fireball hits a... I think the idea with ECS is that the system takes a tuple of components it cares about. Then the ECS system takes care of grouping all the entities with that subset of components together. Yeah, that's my understanding. Grouping all the entities with that subset of components together. So I think it's easier to think about if we pass in the entity itself. So then what we want to do is well, number one, we want to make sure this doesn't run multiple times. I don't think... How does get last slide collision work? Get last slide collision. Does that only return... It's the latest collision that occurred during the last call to move and slide. But that could theoretically give me multiple... that could give me value for multiple physics frames. So I do want to make sure that I only add this once, and that right. And then once we add it in, what do we want to happen? We want oops. For a physics process, we're going to run anything that needs to happen to those. Actually, do we even need anything to run that way? This is so hard to think about. Okay, so Fireball needs to send this entity to the fire system once. We could use a signal to do that. Right. That makes more sense than doing a Boolean check, because this is going to give us... This is going to return true multiple times. So let's create a function called function on... Actually, is there a built-in function for what? On collision? On collision? There must be something like that, right? I suppose I could actually just check the collision shape. No. Oh, there we go. Hold on. Mouse entered, mouse shape exited. Oh, really? There's no... There's no built-in signal there? That seems odd. Let's see. Feels like there should be a... there should be a built-in signal there. Okay, what do we have? Get last slide collision, get slide collision count. Set collision layer, collision blah blah blah. One-way collision. Huh. On... Oh, that's not gonna work. Where do I find the signals? I just wanna like look at them. Signal. I mean, I know it could create one, but there's gotta be a collision signal, right? I can't imagine that it wouldn't have that. Go collision signal. Body entered. Did I miss that? Oh, wait. Hold on. Okay, rigid blah 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 blah. Give it a collision shape. It's controlled by physics, blah 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 blah. The area 2D will emit a signal body entered when something enters and body exited when something leaves. But that doesn't work from the character body. Oh, this is also old because it's using kinematic body. Huh. I don't think it would make sense to turn this into just an area because there should be other things that affect this, like we'll have wind effects and a wind system that might manipulate how this moves. I mean, I could do that with an area, but okay, I guess we need to create a new signal. I'm still unsure about alright, we'll do this the messy way until I figure out how that works. We'll create a variable called... I guess the question is also what happens if it hits multiple things? Um... What happens if it hits multiple things? Maybe not a big problem for the fireball, but let's say if there's a bigger fireball, where it would more likely hit multiple things, then you would theoretically want it to put all of those into the fire system. So... Maybe this should... So this is only getting the last slide collision. Does that return an array? Get last slide collision? Or is that just a... Oh, it returns a kinematic collision 2D. Which contains information about the latest collision. So that's an object. It's got lots of collision data. So... maybe it makes sense to break this apart. We have a collision, and then if it collides, then we trigger some other things to happen, including the check for the flammable component and all of that stuff. We could do that differently with... how did I do it here? Throw state... No. Detect objects? Oh, check area clear. That was it. Physics shape query parameters 2D.new. Look at get slide collision count. Well, I'm wondering if I should do an area anyway, because it may be more intuitive. Like, imagine you have a giant fireball, and you shoot it at a group of trees. Technically, it only hits, let's say, one of the trees, just as an example, but it's so close to the others that it, and maybe the animation is kind of, explosive when it hits, that it feels like it should make the other ones around it burst into flames. So in that case, it really shouldn't be caused by the collision. This fire is kind of a... Intuitively, fire is something that can kind of jump a little bit, right? It's not necessarily just an object hitting something. It's chemistry, so it's more proximity based. So I'm thinking we do, we need to check a kind of general area and basically run all this code and then return a list of things within that broad sort of collision area. So here's what happens. We check if we have a collision. If we have a collision, then we want to have a function to deal with that. The then in this, what do we call it? We want to call it, I guess, is the fireball collision going to do anything else besides setting things on fire. Well, it might. So we'll just call it handle impact, handle collision, I guess. That's a little bit too vague. Handle impact. Well, but maybe something needs to happen in some cases with the thing that it actually collides with. For example, it's going to travel to the animation state collide. So there could be things that are just caused by this that do not deal with what do we call this? Impact radius, handle impact effects, maybe? That's sort of, I don't really like the name of that. Maybe I'll rename that, but that's fine. That'll be different than what's happening just from the collision itself. And this is where we would run basically this kind of code. Wait. If detected object. Oh, that's right. That's being... Okay, let me just let me copy all of this and put it in here and then figure out what needs to be different. So we want the position to be... also, this should be a coroutine. How do you write that? Is it like... you just use yield or something? I can't even remember. Godot coroutine yield, I think. Or wait. Which one is the right one now? No, the problem is... Well, I default back to my solution of just putting bools everywhere. Impacts handled equals false. What did you say about the... Oh, get slide collision count. Okay. So that is something we want to do. So if collision, we want to variable collision slide collision count. Well, I don't really care about the count necessarily, just I want actual references to the colliders. Well, I guess, okay, I run a loop here. Okay. Variable collisions is oh, let's call this collision data so that it doesn't get confusing. If collision data, then variable collisions equals get slide collision count. And then for I in collisions, What do we want to do? We want to... Oh, well, that would only matter if there's something that we're actually using the collisions for. So that doesn't matter. Okay, fantastic. Never mind, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, we might go back to that later, but that's fine. So, if collision, what do we want to do? We want to handle the impact effects. So, if impact's handled, just thinking out loud, don't do this. I would maybe do one heat component and one material component. Have a system that walks over everything with material and heat and updates their temperature. That's an interesting idea. There's sort of an interesting philosophical question, or I guess it's just game design, but at what level of fidelity does the simulation stop being useful for actually building a good game? Because the idea with a lot of this stuff is it aids immersion, makes you feel like you can do cool things. Oh, look, I can burn trees, right? But how realistic do you want that to be? And I think the answer has something to do with the representation of it. So the fact that this is like, 16 by 16 tiles, you can't have a fine enough detail of visual representation for something which actually acts like a simulated reality. The visual representation is a low resolution version of reality, so that the interaction needs to also be on a similar level of resolution. Which is to say, I don't know that, that setup would probably work better if I was designing something that was a really highly, high fidelity world. But since this is kind of like a cartoonish world, I don't need it to actually be a simulation. I need it to be intuitive. What's the line about reality over realism or something like that? It just needs to be internally consistent and intuitive. We'll just do it this way. If not impacts handled, then we will run handle impact effects, and impacts handled equals true. Oops. And then we'll put this flammable stuff down in here. And we'll put the velocity in there. Actually, all of this will basically be handled in there. So the only thing that won't be handled here is what? I can't even think of any kind of interaction that might happen just from collisions. Oh, thanks, Ace Roy. Yep. See you next time. Okay, so now, how much room should impact effects of the fireball have? See, so that's already larger than the collision shape that it's using. And it kind of collapses as well, so, you'd want it to, like, I mean, circles are easier to understand and theoretically easier for the computer to process, although that probably doesn't matter at this level. If it's coming from a certain direction, okay, let's imagine a situation where see, that's the sort of situation, like, okay, if the fireball hits this tree, should it also immediately set this one on fire? Even though this one is probably going to be set on fire by the proximity thing. It's so close, if the impact is, even though it's not hitting the collider for this one, especially since the colliders are not, that's another question, is maybe I need to have different colliders for this sort of thing. Because what you hit with a projectile is not necessarily the same thing that you'd hit by walking into it. You know, walking into it, okay, this is nice. You get to sort of go between the trees, right? But if you shoot a fireball's sort of lighter, theoretically. So it should hit leaves, even though you can walk through leaves. You know, or can it hit, let's say if we have tall grass. Well, the character should definitely be able to walk through tall grass. But should a fireball hit tall grass? So maybe there needs to be a different collision detection system for projectiles. That's probably makes more sense. It needs a specific hitbox, not just the collider. So that's number one. But that doesn't matter to the fireball, at least. What matters to the fireball is what happens when it hits it. So let's say that we have a hitbox which sort of encapsulates the trees, the leaves of the tree a bit more. Fireball hits this tree, just very close to this tree, but doesn't hit it. We still want to, I think we want to trigger that as well. So we want a circle shape. Circle shape.2d.new. This is probably something actually that I could abstract out into the fire system as well instead. And then just store data in here about the size, the specific information that I'm passing in. Okay, but I'll write it out in this context first. So shape.size. Now, what does a circle shape take in? I would assume just like a diameter, right? Or radius. Shape.size. We need to just go into the circle shape 2D class and see what's there. Property, yes, radius. So the radius, wait, was that it's just called radius? So the radius, we'll call it, oh, but that's, if I abstract it out, then is it always going to be a circle? Yeah, it's always going to be a circle, right? Is there any reason why it wouldn't be a circle? Let's say you have a projectile which is really sort of pointy. Do you want it to have a circular area of effect? Or do you want it to have a different kind of shape? I mean, a box feels very inorganic. So a capsule, though? Maybe a capsule makes more sense. Capsule. I wonder. Well, that's something I can worry about. Let's just look up what the capsule shape takes in. Capsule, oops, capsule shape 2D. That has a radius and a height. Okay. I guess that makes sense because it's basically just a circle, and then at the midpoints it extends. So this is always going to work no matter what anyway. The radius will change. The height would not be determined. Alright, we'll just start by assuming that we're using a circle for everything. If we need to change it to a capsule later, we can do that. So, shape.radius should be... We're going to pass in a value. Impact radius. And that's what we're going to pass in here. Impact radius. And that will be determined here. So we'll have our impact data, which is going to be impact radius. And for this, for a fireball, what should we say? How big is the fireball? So right now, this is how do I even find? Okay, well those are pixels. So the circle shape is the collider is how big? Where do we get the where do I get the actual data about it? Oh, there we go. Okay, so the collider shape is 4 pixel radius. So let's just make it a little bit bigger. Let's say it's 7. Okay, and we'll pass, well, we're going to change that. So, okay, so impact radius. Okay, and now we have a new transform. And we want to pass in the position. And we'll put that in here. What is 0? What does a transform 2D take in? 2D. Rotation? Do I need that? Why did I have that? I guess you can't just pass in a position. You need a rotation as well. Okay, fine. So no rotation, that doesn't matter. And we pass it in the position. Okay, now we have a new transform. Now this, we do want to exclude what? Well, what we want to do is we only want to... We only really care about things that can burn. So this is where we want to do the check for the flammable component. But we can only do that if we actually run the intersection first. So the only thing that we need to exclude is self. Maybe we'll need to exclude something else as well, but I can't think of it right now. And then, so what does this return? Intersect shape. Sect shape. Physics. Why there's two methods here? What? Physics direct space state 2D extension of virtual methods that can be overridden to create custom implementations. I don't need that, so I just need the normal one. So intersect shape returns a dictionary. Oh, with multiple fields. Collider ID, RID, what is that again? Okay, oh, resource identifier. The shape index of the colliding shape. Intersecting shapes are returned in an array. Continue. Okay. So then what do I want out of that? Okay, variable result. So let's call it results. Actually, because we're going to be getting multiple things. Well, no, we'll just keep it consistent. Okay. So this is going to return any physics shape. Now, we only want to check, well, first of all, we only want to check hitboxes. We don't want to check just normal movement colliders. Okay, I don't want to get too distracted here, but I think one thing I do want to do is change this whole setup and have a physics layer and maybe we'll call it a chemistry layer. And that way, I'm not really sure. I'm still never really sure how to use layers effectively. But I think that will make more sense. And then we can just... There must be a way to just query along the chemistry layer rather than the physics layer. Alright, yes. Take care. So, how do we do this? Query physics shape query parameters 2D. Shape query parameters 2D. collision mask. So we want to change that to oh, I just meant same about the physics layers being confusing to me. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah. I'm still not really sure why. I just don't know what the best use of that is. But hopefully this works. So query.exclude self. And then we'll just add after that query dot collision mask. Can we set collision mask? Is there not a method for that? Where was it? Are there not methods here? Set transform, set shape. Oh yeah. Set collision mask. Why was that not coming up then? And so we want the second layer. Okay. So we're only going to be checking for chemistry hitboxes. I can change that later if I need to. Let me make a note of that. Chemistry layer. Just so I know exactly where that is. Okay, then we intersect shape. So now we're getting all of the results. Then we want to check those results to see oh, but no, hold on. What result? Is this giving me? Oh, this is giving me a dictionary. Can I still do length? How many results am I getting? Where is it? Where is it? Physics. Okay. Intersect shape parameters. Max results. Checks the intersection of a shape. Intersected shapes are returned in an array containing. Oh. Oh, it's an array of dictionaries. Oh, that's what I missed. Okay. So but if it's an array, then I should have length, right? Result dot length. Theoretically. Then I want to cycle through all of these and do what? Check the object that they're attached to and see if they have a flammable component. So let's I should stop defaulting to using object for things. Variable, what do we call it? What parent entity is going to be, how do we get it? Collider. I'm not sure how that works. Array of dictionaries. So everyone is in a dictionary. So this is the index of the dictionary. So what would that be? Can I just get it with Collider? I'm not sure about that. I may be missing something there. It'd be a string? Oh, that's right. It wouldn't be dot. Wait. Um, huh. This is a chance to ask ChatGPT. Oh. Oh, that makes more sense. Right. So I don't need length then. Okay. Let's say dictionary and result. And then I just want to get the parent, right? I think that makes sense. Sweet. I'm going to trust ChatGPT on that one, which is probably a bad idea. But let's assume this is working properly. So now I have the parent entity, and then I want to create, I'll do this. Get node or null, flammable component. And then, well, let's put this all in the fire system so that it's a little bit clear what's going on. So yes, we'll do that in a second. And then here, we're going to pass in impact radius and position. And this, we also want to put this inside of this so it only runs once. Let's just separate that so it's a little bit clearer. Oh, and we need to call the fire system. Alright, well that's nice and clean. Okay. So now in here, what else do we need to do? So now, theoretically, if this is all working, we are seeing if there's a flammable component. So the list that we want to add to, we want to call it, what, I don't know, just burning. Is there a plural noun for things that are burning? Burning things? Yeah, burning things is pretty good, actually. Burning things. And this will be an array. And the question is, do we want to add... Right, we were going to add by entity, so... but we also wanted some kind of value to represent whether it was spreading or not. So anything that is part of the first impact would just be a first level burn, and then succeeding ones would be given a higher index, and then we check to see if that's, we check in the spreading code to see if that's too high. So we actually need to make this a dictionary, and we'll give it okay, so let's just do this here. So if flammable, then we ignite entity by collision, and we pass in the parent entity, and that should work. Famous last words encoding. So once we pass that in, now we're passing in all the entities that have flammable components in the area defined by the impact radius. So now what we want to do is we want to add them to the Burning Things dictionary along with a index of 0, or not index, but a, what do you call it, a key of 0. So this is actually very simple. Actually, do we need this as a separate function, or can we just do it here? This is basically igniting the entity by collision. So well, there's no problem with having it in a separate function. So all we need to do is burning things. What dot add? What is the? What do you do with dictionaries? Let's close all this so that I don't get distracted. So let's just look up dictionary. Get or add? Wait, can I just add something to it? How do you just add to a dictionary? Or do I just do plus equals? Oh, get world 2D not found in base self. Oh, because this is a node instead of a node 2D. Okay, so that should solve that. New key equals new value. But what we want is am I misunderstanding how a dictionary works? Because what we want is we want an index of the dictionary element, and then in addition to that index we want basically two values, right? Because the idea should be, okay, you've got index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, maybe a bunch of things get burnt. They're all added to the burning things list, and for each of those, if they're added by collision, they should have some value of like 0 to, or maybe even like an enum. That might make it easier to think about. Or no, what? Burning type, spread type. So, okay, let's try that. So, burning things. No, that doesn't make any sense. How? So, duplicate, no. Variant, find key. because we want to have a bunch of different entries in the dictionary, most of which will probably be, will have the same. I guess you can't have the same key for multiple values in a dictionary. That wouldn't make any sense, would it? Can you do that? Can you have multiple? If the value of the key is the same, are they still different keys? I just want to store two values together. That was all. All right, back to ChatGPT. I'm just not really sure how dictionaries work. Do I need an array of dictionaries? Is that the idea? Yeah, because then every dictionary has its own index, even if the value is the same. Okay, I'm gonna try that. So you just flip the pages. It's alphabetical, bro. So we want unite entity by collision. I just want to add, we want to make this a list actually, because then we can, is that not a thing? Could not find list. Is there not just a list type? Is there really not just like a list class? List. Item list? No. I just want like a, just an array that I can add to and that I can cycle through. Okay, we'll say this is an array. And then we just want to, what? We create a new dictionary. What? How do you write it? It's like with these. God, I can always... Right. So we would say entity, and what? Zero? Can I just do that? I get like name. No, but I want to be able to reference the actual object, right? So maybe I do 0 first and then entity. Does that work? I don't really get how dictionaries work. Expected something or something after dictionary key. Get a copy of a dictionary which can be modified independently of the original. No, I do want reference. I do want reference. The question is, can I not just, what can we do, like, object, entity, value, oh, no, not, what am I doing? Identifier type not declared in the current scope. Oh, I need parentheses. Is that it? Is that really it? God damn it. I mean, quotation marks, whatever. I just want to make sure that that's actually passing in a reference to the entity. I think it is. But let's just make sure that that works. So then we just want to, what? Burning things dot. Or do we do it like, dot add to? How do I just add things to an array? What the heck? Isn't there just like an add to or something? Add to group, add to... add item, no. Animation, no. Push back new value. I'm not sure what that means. Am I just retarded? What the heck? How do I add something to an array? Should be super simple. Oh, append? The method you want is called pushback, not add. But pushback, that sounds to me like it would add it to the top of the array. When I want to add it, I mean, I want to add it in order, right? In case there's any kind of, I don't know, if in case anything needs to happen in order like that. Append? Is it just that? What is append? What a weird word to use. Appends value at the end of the array. Oh, alias of pushback. So pushback is the same? Oh, push, I see. Push to the back, not push back. That's confusing as hell. What the heck? Why would you call it push back? Okay. So that is theoretically working. And then God damn it. This may be overly complicated, but it actually helps me think about it better, so. No, I should be setting the flammable when they're sent to the array. Right? So forget about that. We want to I know I'm doing this again, but that's okay. Is burning equals true. Okay. That theoretically deals with the igniting by collision. Then we'll just create one that is igniting by. We don't need to call this ignite entity. We'll just call it ignite by collision. Where was that? And then we'll call this one ignite by proximity. And for this one, what do we want to do? We're going to be passing in the entity. And we want to do the check to see oh, yeah, we want to get this value. Oh, you know, I think I need to move around and do something else for a while. I've been staring at the screen too long. 2 hours, that's okay. I think that's it for now. I'm gonna take a little break from this. So, thanks for stopping in, guys. I appreciate it. And hopefully I'll have some of this worked out by next time. All right. Take care.